Hello. This is a video to hopefully help you with the math review worksheet. If you're rusty on your algebra, hopefully you can watch this, learn how I do these problems, and then be able to do them yourself at the end. I gave this out in class, and it's on my It's Learning page, so you should have this blank with no answers on it. The way that you solve every single one of these problems is you take the assignments of the numbers to the variable, and you plug it in. Draw out the equation. So A is 10, A is on the left, so 10 is on the left. That's why I did that. C is 2, there we go. That's why there's a 2 here. D is 5, that's why there's a 5 here. Now, I did not give you a B in this problem, right? Because I want to know what that equals. This is the algebra part. So that's why I left it as a B. You could make it an X or a Y, anything works. I left it red so that it stands out more, so that you can see what I'm doing with it. Now, I wrote out PEMDAS right here because this will help us determine what to do first and what to do after each step. Now, when you're dealing just with numbers, what you do is you do the normal PEMDAS. You start with parentheses, then you do the exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. But it's different when you're doing algebra. When you're doing algebra instead of arithmetic, then you need to do PEMDAS backwards when you're isolating the variable. Doing PEMDAS backwards is the same thing as isolating the variable. So I'll show you what I mean when I solve a couple of these problems. This is number 1. A is 10, C is 2, D is 5. What is B? So the first thing I'm going to do all the time is 2 times 5. This is just a number right here. I could write it as 2 times 5 if I wanted to, but that just makes things more difficult. So everything that's purely adding or multiplying numbers with no variables, I'll just deal with. So what that means is that this turns into 10 equals B, gotta make it red, plus 10. This is my simplified problem after the first step. Here we go, those are the same. Now 10 equals B plus 10 should be pretty clear to you, but even if you can do it in your head, it's good to practice doing it on the paper. I have a plus 10 on this side, and I need to get rid of it to isolate the variable, so I have to do minus 10. That means that now, because I did minus 10 to both sides, I get 10 minus 10 equals B. You can probably tell that 10 minus 10 is 0, therefore B equals 0. That's the answer to number 1. Pretty straightforward. It has the same steps I'll be doing for all the problems. Number 2. I'm not going to explicitly tell you why I put a 6 and a 4 and a 2 here every time. You should know that plugging in the numbers is the very first step. So, 6 equals 4 plus 2D. Now, there's no addition or subtraction or multiplication or division with just numbers here. This multiplication has a variable. This addition involves the variable. So I have to start doing PEMDAS backwards. There's no way to make this simpler. You can see that right here, where we start, is addition and subtraction. What that means is that you deal with the addition and subtraction first. So this plus 4 right there, I'm going to eliminate that first by doing minus 4, because you need to do the opposite to get rid of it. So what that gives me is 6 minus 4, which is 2, equals 2 times D. I did minus 4 to both sides. The 2 is still there. Now I can get rid of this multiplication. This 2D, I want to divide it by 2, because I have a multiplying by 2. So after I do that, I get 2 divided by 2 is equal to D. And maybe you'll be able to tell 2 divided by 2 is 1, so D equals 1. Fantastic. This one's a little more annoying because I have negative signs. You need to know how to deal with negatives. So I'm doing PEMDAS backwards. The first thing I deal with is the addition and subtraction. Right here I have a negative 17 plus. So maybe you remember that adding a negative number is the same as just subtraction. So this is basically a minus 17. To get rid of a minus 17, I have to do plus 17 to both sides. So I'm going to do negative 5 plus 17. I'll write it out here. Negative 5 plus 17 equals c times 4. You can use a calculator if you want, but negative 5 plus 17 is 12. So what this simplifies to is, I'll draw this down here so you can see where I'm going. 12 equals c times 4. So c equals 12 divided by 4 to get rid of the multiplication, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. C equals 3. Hopefully that was not too difficult. You get the process. Plug in the numbers, deal with any pure numbers with no variables involved, just make it simpler, and then do PEMDAS backwards to isolate the variable. Demonstrate this again with my second problem set. I have it all plugged in here. The first step is to deal with any just pure numbers. Right here I got a pure number, right? 1 plus 3, that's easy to do. So what that means is now I can say that 2 equals 4 times e, oh, that should have been red, my bad, 4 times e divided by 4. So you can either move this 4 over to this side by multiplying by 4, or you can realize that 4 divided by 4 is 1, and they go away. They cancel. Either way will get you the same answer at the end. But just canceling it, you figure out that 2 equals e. Straightforward. By dealing with the numbers first, we made this easier. Next, it's more annoying because we had the variable inside the parentheses right here. But the process is the same. Now, we don't have anything that we can do with just pure numbers. I could distribute this 2 if I wanted to, right? 2 times b plus 6, but I'm not going to because I don't have to, and distributing will generally make things harder if you don't have to. I'm going to think about PEMDAS. There's no addition and subtraction, so I deal with the multiplication and division. I'll start with the 5, right? I have a divided by 5, so I want to do a times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So 20 equals b plus 3. Oop, nope. Sorry, it's hard for me to get these colors right in my head. B plus 3, still in the parentheses, times 2. I have a times 2. I want to get rid of it by doing a divided by 2. So you do 20 divided by 2 in your calculator and you figure out that it's 10. So I get that 10 is equal to b plus 3. Now to get rid of this plus 3, I got to do a minus 3. So you do with your calculator 10 minus 3 and you get 7. That tells you that 7 equals b. 7's your answer. Next, we have the variable on the bottom, right? This is something that I talked about how to deal with in class. It's a little bit annoying. There are 2 ways you can think of doing it. I'm going to do it the flip way, and that means that if you have something on the bottom here, what you do is you flip it with what's on the other side of the equal sign. So I take the d and the 3 and I just flip them, replace them with each other. So what that means is now I get that d is equal to 1 plus 2 is 3, so I'm just going to combine those. 3 times 4 over 3. Now you can see here that this 3 and this 3 are going to cancel. So that lets you simplify the answer to d equals 4. That wasn't that bad. Variable on the bottom, you can flip it. Alternatively, what you could have done was you could have cross-multiplied. And what I mean by that is you could have taken the d multiplied it up here, and then because there's nothing on the bottom here, you don't have to worry about it. So what that would have given you is that 3 times d is equal to 3 times 4, because I just combined this 1 plus 2 into 3 again. And then this gives you the same answer because you divide by 3. They both are exactly the same. Do whatever you feel most comfortable doing. Next, problem set 3. This one, you don't have to do any algebra because the variable's already isolated. You just got to know how to deal with the negative signs. Because this is normal arithmetic, you just do PEMDAS. So that's what you want to do first. Negative 3 times 2, or negative 3 squared, my bad. So hopefully you remember that a negative times a negative is a positive number. So what this is going to give you is just 9. Actually, I'll go in order here. Okay. Negative 1 times negative 4. You have a negative times a negative, which is a positive number. So this is positive 4 plus, this is a negative 2 still. So negative 2 times, and the negative 3 squared is the same as 3 squared because the negative cancel. 3 squared is 9. So next, you do the multiplication and division because you're doing PEMDAS normally because there are no letters you're dealing with. Negative 2 times 9, you can check it with your calculator, is negative 18. So now, my problem is that a equals 4 plus negative 18. And hopefully you remember that when you add a positive number to a negative number, basically you go up by 4 from negative 18, right? So negative 18 is really low, then negative 17, negative 16, negative 15, negative 14. You're adding 4, so you're going 4 in the positive direction, which means that you're going to end up with negative 14 is the answer. So A is equal to negative 14. All right, next. Once again, the first thing we do is we deal with all of the numbers that are pure numbers right now. This is easy, 1 times 5. This is another one, 2 squared. Both of those are just numbers written in a really annoying way. So we could say that this is 17 equals 1 times 5 is 5 plus d, and then 2 squared is just 4. Right? So 17 equals 5 plus d times 4. So now that we can't do anything without dealing with a letter, we got to do PEMDAS backwards to figure out what to do. What that means is that we're going to get rid of any addition and subtraction first, like that, addition and subtraction. So we're going to do minus 5 to both sides. 17 minus 5 is 12. Equals, and then the d didn't change, times 4. Now we can do the one step. This is multiplication, so we got to do division. So we get that d is equal to 12 divided by 4, or d is equal to 3. 12 divided by 4. Almost done with problem set 3. Okay. So A is 20, B is 2, C is 1, D is 2. What is E? Now, we see some just pure numbers we can deal with. 2 times 1. That's easy. It's 2. So what we get is that 20 is equal to 2 plus 2 times E squared. Now, we can no longer simplify any numbers down. We're doing algebra, and because we're doing algebra instead of arithmetic, we need to do PEMDAS backwards. So to figure out what to do first, we go from the end. Addition and subtraction. There's some addition right there. Plus 2. So to get rid of it, we need to do minus 2. 20 minus 2 is 18. So I get 18 equals 2 times E squared. Next, you know we have the exponent up here, multiplication down here. We're doing PEMDAS backwards because we're doing algebra, so we deal with the multiplication and division first. That means we have to divide by 2. So to divide both sides by 2, we get 18 divided by 2, which is 9, equals, and then on this side, it's e squared. To get rid of a square, we have to do a square root. That's the opposite. So our answer is the square root of 9 equals e, and the square root of 9 is 3. You can do that with a calculator if you don't know it already. So e equals 3. Finally, very last problem set. This video is kind of long, I apologize. You plug in the numbers, and now you solve. Notice that we're barely doing any algebra here. This is just a number. This is just a number. So we can make those simpler. We get that a squared, so a squared equals 2 squared, you can do that with a calculator, it's just 4, plus 3 times 4. You can do that with a calculator, it's 12. Four plus 12 is 16. So you get that a squared equals 16. Now you remember how to deal with a squared. We just did it. You take a square root. So a is equal to the square root of 16, which is 4. So for the first part, part 4, we get that a equals 4. Next, almost done, the penultimate problem. A equals 5, C is 2, D is 8, what is B? So, step 1, just like always, we figure out any pure numbers we can deal with. We can deal with this because it's multiplication with just numbers. 2 times 8 is the same as 16. We can also deal with this, 5 squared. That's the same as 25. We only have to deal with PEMDAS backwards or algebra when we deal with the variable, adding or multiplying directly by the variable. So, making this easier, 5 squared is 25 equals b is right here, b squared, we didn't do anything, plus 2 times 8 is 16. Plus 16. Now, hopefully, you remember that to get rid of a plus 16, I need to do a minus 16 to both sides. So, 25 minus 16, you can do this with a calculator, it's 9. 9 equals b squared. Now, we pretty much just saw this, right? 9 equals b squared. To get rid of the square, we do a square root. Right there, square root, square root. And what this gives us is that the square root of 9, which is 3, equals b. That's the answer. B is 3. So I apologize for this last one. The numbers were all supposed to be very nice, and you were supposed to be able to do this in your head. But you see a is negative 5, b is negative c, d is 4, right? That is exactly the same that it was up here. A is negative 5, b is negative 17, d is 4. I just copy-pasted this and then changed the numbers for all the other problems because it was easier for me than writing it out. But I guess I forgot to change the numbers this time. So this one is going to give you something big and weird. So a is negative 5, and we square that whole thing. That's just a number. B is negative 17, and we square b, so we square that whole thing. That's just a number. This we can't deal with because there's a variable, so we got to leave it for later. Negative 5 squared is going to be 25, positive 25 because a negative times a negative. Negative 17 squared is going to be 17 times 17. Once again, the negatives cancel, so you get positive 289, which is a big number. And then plus the c didn't change, it's still c times 4. So still C times 4. Now, we're into stuff we know how to do. I have a plus 289. Whoa. Okay, I have a plus 289 right here. To get rid of it, I have to do a minus 289 to both sides. So I do 25 minus 289. And if you use a calculator, you'll find out, I don't know if you can do this one in your head, but if you do a calculator, you'll find out that it is negative 264 is equal to C times 4. Because all we did was deal with this addition, not the multiplication yet. So now I have a times 4. I got to get rid of it by doing divided by 4. So you divide both sides by 4. Negative 264 divided by 4 is negative 66, which is equal to C, which we have now isolated. So the last answer is negative 66. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm sorry it was long. There's going to be links in the description letting you jump to particular problems. I guess that would have been better to put that at the beginning. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for listening.